Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, to start off, I did want to just mention a couple of my quick thoughts here. That way, in case you haven't actually seen the film, you can get a feel for what I thought of it and potentially see if you want to go see it yourself. So, I loved this film. I think it was a very, very strong movie, and I think it did such a good job in terms of being a film that was, I would say, inhabiting representation, but also a very, very good film. And that is something that sometimes is secondary to the actual representation aspect of some films. I was very happy to notice that while I was watching this, that the film was just high quality and it didn't feel whitewashed. It didn't feel like it was inauthentic, and it didn't feel like it was representation just for the sake of representation. It felt like it was a very organic film, and I really, really liked it. The action scenes, the character relationships, all that stuff worked very, very well together, and it helped to drive the plot forward. There were a lot of fight scenes, or a couple of fight scenes that happened throughout the film, and they all just felt very real while also showcasing what the character of Shang-Chi was actually able to do, and it all felt very, very real, like he was a ground level fighter for majority of the film. And then we also had the final battle, which was much more grand, and yeah, I thought it was very, very well done. So if you are thinking about seeing this film and you haven't already, I would recommend you see it and then you come and watch this movie. Now that we are done just talking about the general ideas of the film, we are going to actually take a look at one of the character relationships that I really, really liked, and it felt very real. So if you haven't already clicked off, if you haven't watched the film, please do so now. Of course, this relationship that we are talking about is that between Shang-Chi and his father, the Manderin, who, he calls himself, he says he's not actually the Mandarin, right? We hear here that the Ten Rings was actually appropriated, right? And I really liked the way that they went about it, where the actual Ten Rings is just led by this guy who holds these rings on his fingers. So they're more like gauntlets, or like, not gauntlets, bracelets, right? That hold immense power, one of which is providing its users with immortality. I thought it was very, very cool that they were like, oh yeah, this is just completely made up. These elements that we've seen before, they were just appropriated to be that way. It's not actually that. And they made their own thing with it, right? I really, really liked that. Me personally, I wasn't certain how I would feel about the 10 rings not being 10 actual rings, just because I had grown up watching one of the shows from Iron Man. I forget what the actual show was called, but that show had the Mandarin in it, and I think it came out around the same time as Iron Man 3 or a little bit before, or something like that. So I had seen the Mandarin in action before with the rings, and I thought it was going to be really, really cool to see that version on screen. I was very, very surprised that despite them changing so much, I really loved his character. I think he was very, very compelling. And now, specifically with his relationship with Shang-Chi, it felt like a truly estranged father-son relationship, and I really appreciated that, because not only did it show the complexity of people in the MCU, which sometimes, like, you can say that the films are, I don't know, campy might be the word sometimes, but despite that, they do show some real, very real relationships that are much more complex than just, oh, you're my father, you're the son, right? And you get along or you don't, right? It's a lot more complicated than that, because Shang-Chi doesn't hate his father, he doesn't hate his family, but on top of that, he recognizes the evil or the nature of his father, the things that he has done, and the organization that he controls as being something that he does not want to be a part of. So that has caused a huge strain in their relationship. On top of that, his father basically trained him after his mother died to be a child soldier and to be an assassin. So I truly believed the relationship that they built up here. I think the actors did a wonderful job on this. Next, we are going to talk about the Mandarin. I know I just said that Shu is not actually the Mandarin, and that is true. I said that. We are talking about Trevor, the actor. Now, I expected, like most people, that Trevor was dead. And that is because, for those who are actually aware, after Iron Man 3, there is a short that got put out with this actor named Trevor, and he is in prison, and he gets taken by the 10 rings. And so it was assumed that he died like 10 years ago, and I loved that they found a way to bring this man back because he is hilarious in this film, and it's so fun just to see a familiar face in this story. I mean, he's not the only character that we see again, and I'll talk about Wong later. I just loved the comedic tones that this actor brought in to the film. I just thought it worked very, very well, and of course the creature that he had with him that only he could talk to, so much fun. I mean, this was just a great time, and Trevor brought so much to it just because it was a piece of familiarity with what we saw in the original Iron Man 3 film with the Mandarin. It built upon that in that we got to see the world connect a little bit more to the past of the MCU, and I really, really liked that. So the next thing I want to talk about is Kady. I mean, I really liked her character throughout the film. It was just that there was one thing here, and that was that she just masterfully knew archery, right? Or magically knew archery, and she was like a master at it right away. And I thought that was a little bit weird considering the other people around her had been doing archery for a very, very long time, presumably. And I mean, everyone else, including Shu and the actual Mandarin and the Shang-Chi character, they all trained for years, as did everyone else in the village, and it just felt weird that she was capable of doing what she did right away. I just found that was a little bit odd to me. I mean, she had the kind of MacGuffin type moment where she shot the arrow and saved the day basically by damaging the, I don't know what the evil spawn creature or whatever that existed, and I thought that was a little bit weird, but overall, I do still like the Kady character. I thought she was a very good addition to the film. She kind of balanced out a lot of the comedic elements too, and she was like our guide throughout the entire story. So I really, really enjoyed her presence throughout the film. It was just that one thing that bothered me, and especially as we were going through the film, I knew it was going to be, at some point, it had to be addressed as to why she was still there, in terms of her being surrounded by people who could like literally kill her, and then these monsters show up and she's still there, not like running to protect herself. And I thought that was a little bit weird. Of course, they did address that with the whole archery thing, being able to shoot arrows and stuff, but I still thought it was a little bit odd because that, came out of nowhere. I do still think that she brought a lot to the film, and I thought she was a very, very good character. I liked her relationship with Shang. The two of them just make very good friends, and they were very believable. Again, the chemistry with a lot of the characters in this film was just very, very well done. I thought they selected everyone, like it was a very good selection of the cast for every single role. I don't think there was anyone that just felt like they didn't belong in terms of the family dynamics and the friendships and stuff. So, I mean, kudos to whoever hired everyone for Shang-Chi. As we were talking about the final battle, I thought I'd continue and say I really enjoyed the battle between the Shu character as well as Shang-Chi, like the father Shu. I'm sorry, I keep having to clarify that, but it's like, I don't want to say the Mandarin because he even says that's not his name. He had another name which was like the Conqueror or something, like, or not the Conqueror, that's Kang, but like, I don't know, he had some other like long name that people called him, that he was like a legend or whatever. The Mandarin is like also not his real name. So yeah, that final battle was really, really cool, how Shang-Chi was able to get the rings off of him, and how he was taught some of the techniques that he had learned as a child again, and he was finally able to master some of the things that his mother was able to do to best his father. Of course, he wasn't as capable in terms of fighting as his mom, just because he hadn't been training for that long in that style of battle. But at the same time, he already had his training from his father, and then on top of that, he had some early training from his mother. So it was believable that he was able to at least put up somewhat of a fight against his dad. And then once he got the rings off of him, it made a lot of sense at that point, because it felt like, okay, yeah, he was defeated by his son, and that's the end of it. And then, of course, the final real battle, like the final battle between the monsters, started to happen. And I originally thought when this was happening, I was hoping that the battle didn't become too crazy with a bunch of CGI monsters, and I think that it was very, very well done in regard to this, because there was a whole army of human beings fighting these creatures too, and on top of that, there was a human on top of the dragon. Like Shang-Chi and his sister Shu were there, and they were actually part of the battle. So I really enjoyed that, because it felt like a balance between the CGI and the actual people, and it made it much more believable on screen, which isn't always the case. So I thought that was very, very well handled because of the balance between the two in this final act. Next, let us talk about the new 10 rings. So after the end of the film, we get to see a moment where Shu, the daughter, Shang-Chi's sister, is now the head of the 10 rings. And here, I'm not actually sure, is she going to be an antagonist, or is she just like rebranding the 10 rings to be a new type of group? I am curious about that, because they don't really address what she's going to be doing moving forward. But I really liked that scene. Like, she looked really badass just sitting on the chair, and I think it like worked well with earlier on where we saw the dad in the chair, and I thought it was very, very cool. And then also, of course, the modernization of the 10 rings with bringing in females as also part of the I guess the fighting force. I don't know what they're actually, or actually the group is called the 10 rings, so I guess introducing females to the 10 rings as well. So I thought that was very, very cool and well done, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do moving forward. Are they going to continue having the fight club type of thing going on, and what is the overall role of the 10 rings actually going to be in the MCU moving forward? Are they going to help out in future endeavors with the Avengers level threats? Like, are they going to be involved in those type of things? I am not sure, but I'm very curious to see what happens with that, especially because we also have an army of Black Widows sitting somewhere as well. So, I mean, we have these little clusters of groups now that exist in the MCU, and I'm curious what they're going to do moving forward. Now, let's talk about something I really, really wasn't expecting, and that is the presence of Wong throughout this film. I mean, we see him fight Abomination in this film, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic. Earlier, we didn't know that the magician fighting there was going to be Wong, and it was honestly surprising, and it took me for a shock considering how much of a stickler for the magical rules that Wong is. But this seems like just really fun and a cool way to introduce him and integrate him into such a film that is highlighting Asian culture. I thought it was very cool that they brought in another actor from one of the other pieces of the MCU to be a part of this. And especially with his relationship with Abomination, I mean, how he basically takes him, I guess he's from the raft, right? I would assume that Abomination is a threat that's left on the raft as opposed to just sitting in some regular jail cell underground somewhere. I thought that was very, very cool because it added a little dimension to Wong's character beyond just being a stickler for the rules and trying to make sure everything goes on point. But in fact, he has this other side to him that we get to see in this film. I thought it was very, very cool. And then also, he's a huge part of the post-credit scene. So let's talk about that now. In the post-credit scene, we see Shang-Chi and Kady, right? They're having dinner again with their friends, telling the story of everything that happened. And what we find out is like Wong appears and calls forth these two characters. Actually, this whole part was at the end of the actual film. And then from there, we get to actually see that conversation among the three of them about like analyzing the 10 rings and wondering what the actual 10 rings were, why they weren't in the database in terms of what Wong was aware of in terms of the artifacts that were on Earth. And then on top of that, the idea that Bruce Banner as well as Captain Marvel are unaware of any other technology that matches these signatures. I thought it was very, very cool. And I also think that it was setting up for the idea of what else the rings could be capable of and what other villains might be coming in the future to try and take them from Shang-Chi. And specifically, I think that the rings are going to gain their other abilities through the training of Shang-Chi. Specifically, the 10 rings themselves actually have a lot of different powers. I believe immortality is already one of them, which we had already seen. I think that's actually one of the original abilities. But on top of that, we have things relating to, I think, super strength, stuff like that. But there's also lightning projection, like fire projection, teleportation. There's a whole slew of abilities that they can introduce here, and I think that that's what this is going to tie into. I think that would be very, very cool to see, because I would love to see the full-on 10 rings in action in Shang-Chi's possession. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. Before I go though, I did want to mention I'm going to talk more about a theory that I have about Bruce Banner on TikTok. So if you do want to check that out, please go ahead and check the description below for my TikTok. It'll definitely be up for you guys to see. If you liked this video, please let me know in the comments below, as well as liking the actual video. And as always, if you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel for more videos from me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.